guys, welcome to Small Kind of Ding Repairs. We've got this contract blasting job we're about to do. So the tricky thing with this board is going to be, once this cloth inlay on the underside of the board. So we're going to end up glassing this in here, and we're going to trim that edge to about an inch. So we're going to have a white border of the foam blank around the edge of that. The hardest thing with this particular design is going to be, as you can see, we have this straight line through the center of the pattern. So obviously, to look right, that line is going to have to end up matching the stringer, and that's going to be the hardest bit of this, is keeping that straight. Before we get on to that fun bit though, we do have some other steps we need to undertake. So the first one I'm probably going to do is, the shaper has put his fin marks on the board, so we will be installing the boxes as well, but we'll be doing that afterwards, just because doing the cloth inlay over boxes is going to be tricky. Because the board's for a grommet, it's going to be glassed pretty lightly, so it's going to be a 4 ounce wrap all the way around, and that's it. For that reason as well, I might make the cut lap run under a little bit further than usual, just to sort of have a little more overlap of cloth, reinforce around that rail area a bit more. But our first thing on the agenda is going to be taking these fin marks, and we've got to copy these measurements down, because I'm a little worried that when I put the cloth inlay on, because there's so much black on it, we're not going to see these markings anymore. The second step from that is we're going to be masking our cut lap before we do the cloth inlay. The reason being for that is because I don't really want to faff around with drawing my line, masking it all off when I have cloth on the underside anyway. So if I can get that marked off, taped, ready to go, then we'll flip that over, and then we'll mark the edge for our cloth inlay here. Take that, and then all I've got to do is remove that edge of the cloth inlay, and then I can just lam it straight away over to the other side. I don't have to faff around with masking tape and all that type of shit in the meantime. So I've got this easy doodad here. It's just 2 pieces of foam from the last board I shaped up, taped together, and we've got our pencil at 2 inches. I've reset our jig at 1 1/4 inches. So now we're going to do our outline, or our cut for our cloth inlay. So it's going to finish 1 1/4 inches before we reach the rail. This really is the ultimate test of your shape. The outline is out. Then this line will be up. I'm using a reasonably dull pencil because I don't want to be cutting into the foam. The outline actually looks pretty good. Just in case you want to use one, this tape is a 3M and 3 I think 3M stops right for it. I've never really had any issues with it. So you look up here, I'm going to try and actually. That looks good on tape. From over the tape, I might do it too. Direct tape. It was too tight, I'll just bring that straight for that, and then you can razor and cut the tape. So pressure here, cut the tape, so pressure here. I think actually that good. Pretty good. So I'm doing pressure here, I'm high enough, so we should be. See the so use a razor. So a little bit of razor. So you can razor. Line the razor up, second string. I just will take the razor from the other side. Something. So I'm trying to take up one of the hang on, okay, sir. We do the same thing with razor again. This one's starting off. It's not it. It's got down. Right. Yeah. Nice. How do you want to start? Come through the process of that. Because the outline's good. The outline flows. And taking that, we want to do the same flow. So you've got to just get into the right place to start. Once you're done, take one, two, this everything. So our next stage is going to be to mask off here, which this is going to be the edge for our cloth inlay, that is, our designed cloth. So once our cloth's done, we're going to be able to cut it out around the edge, peel all that tape, and then just pull our lamb straight over, do our cut that, and that's it. We're done. The bottom side will be done as far as laminating. Remembering it's only one layer of 4 ounce on this board, just because it's for the grommet. So we're all masked off, deck side and underside. So we're ready to start laying this out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the hardest bit is going to be to line this centre line of our pattern up with our stringer. If it's off or wavy, it's going to be very noticeable, and well, to be honest, it's going to look a bit crap. So our plan is pull it all out reasonably so that we're fairly flat. And reasonably close to the centre. Alright, so the tricky thing with this cloth is I can see the stringer through the white part faintly. So I can see here that I'm actually miles off the stringer. So I can get that a little bit closer. So it's pretty close. It's not, but it's roughly laid out. So our next step is going to be using sewing needles. What we're going to do is we're going to use these sewing needles to anchor our cloth, but we're only going to put the needles on one side of the cloth. So that's going to allow us, once we're ready, we've got our resin poured, we're going to flip the opposite side of the cloth over, pre-wet it, bring it back over with the needles holding it into place. Then we can lay this out. and then we can remove these needles once this side is anchored on with the resin. So basically we're anchoring it on with the sewing needles before we anchor it on, or one half of it on with the resin. That's the plan anyway. Okay, so we've got our line reasonably straight down the stringer, and we pinned. I had to pin fairly frequently, so there's a few pins in there, but the idea is that they will anchor it. I'm going to flip this side up, lay resin on the bottom, and then flip that side back down, squeegee it out, then I can pull these pins out, and then we'll flip the other side over, brush our resin onto that, flop it back over, squeegee it, and then it's inevitably going to move even with the pins, so we're going to have to do a fair bit of tidying up anyway. And my last concern, but I think it should be fine, is how see-through this cloth is going to be once it's wetted out, and can I see my tape edge. But I'm definitely going to be able to see it through this white. I'm pretty confident I'll see it through the red, because that's going to go quite see-through, I imagine. So even if I can't see it through the black, we should be able to put two and two together and work that line out. So I think we're on our way, and we're about ready to start mixing up.
Okay, so during the actual laminating process, I probably won't be doing that much speaking, just because I'll be full focus. So you just get to sit back and enjoy and not stress. This is something come out of my resin tin. Alright, I'm going to finish mixing this up. I'm going to catalyze it pretty low, about 1%. We're a little bit warm in here, and I definitely want the extra time with this. I'll see you once we start. Okay, so we're all laid out. Resin's just starting to kick now, it's starting to gel in the pot. So definitely glad I made a slightly less, or a slightly slower mix. Got that centre pretty lined up. I'm pretty happy with it. Check your ends. Both of my ends right at the tip were super crooked, but of course you're too busy looking at the rest to focus right on that tape line. Other than that, we're pretty good. So I'm going to go and skate, and we'll come back once it's gelled, and we'll cut this outline.
Okay, so we're back after our lamb. The resin may still be slightly soft for cutting, and the other problem we're going to have is we can't see the tape through the red or the black. The white has come up alright, but the red and the black are the problem. I can kind of see the ridge of the outline of the tape, so I'm thinking if I go easy I can probably just follow that little bump where the edge of the tape is. But we'll go slow, and worst case scenario I'll have to let it kick a little more and then redraw that pencil line and just follow that pencil line. But I'm kind of hoping not to have to do that, because the chances of it ending up perfectly where I want it are not too great. So we'll start to make cuts and hope it's kicked enough. So we're all cut out and we're ready for lamb. And because we took the time to already set up our deck, we can drape cloth straight over this and lamb it straight away. It is almost 10 o'clock at night, so I'm probably not going to do that until the morning anyhow. But it means in the morning I don't have to flip it over. I can just pull some cloth over it and set it up for the day. Good to go. It's looking good. Tidied up those ends. Line through the center is nice and straight. That stringer actually makes a little bit of cool contrast against the white, which is nice. We're on our way. You. Okay, so I've saved you some of the boring bit and we've laid our cloth out. I haven't quite finished trimming it off yet. I've kind of been wondering who the target is for a video like this. If you're doing a cloth inlay, I'm kind of imagining that you've already done some glassing yourself. So I don't want to give you super inane pointers that you probably already know. So really I'm just going to carry on with a regular lambing. I'll give you a couple of pointers just in case you haven't done a lot of glassing, but if you haven't done a lot of glassing, then I really wouldn't be tackling the cloth inlay on the first board. So the first tip that comes to mind for those who haven't done a lot of glassing, and let's ignore the cloth inlay for a second, just say we're laminating this board. So this is going to be our first layer of cloth. So we're going 4 ounce on this one. Something that I wish somebody told me with my first board or first 2 boards is how much cloth to have excess under here. So one of the issues I had is that when I started lambing, I would paper all of this, so no resin could get on all of this. It's a little different now because I could mess it up and splash some resin about. I won't be doing that, but it's possible. But one of the issues I had was because all of this was fine to have cloth laying on because it was all papered and masked, I left these little wings here really long. The problem with doing that is the more cloth you have laying down here once we get to our rails, the heavier it is, because now we've got an extra inch or 2 inches of cloth that are soaked with resin and they're heavy. So they're going to want to fall down and you're going to have a really hard time sticking them, and not even, you might get it all stuck and then leave the room for half an hour, come back and parts of it have fallen and you start to get air bubbles around here because it's falling here. So you want to cut, regardless of if you paper in here, which is, I definitely would recommend it, especially if it's one of your first lambs. But regardless, you want to cut this with as little overhang as possible. Something like that's fine. We're pretty close to an inch there. So that's good. I'm almost cut too short here, but that's good because there's not going to be any of that excess weight. If I can find something like here, it's maybe, I'll probably trim that off another 1/4 inch or so, just so I don't have all that excess, so it's not heavy and it's not going to want to fall down. The other tip under here as well is to reduce the creases in your masking tape as much as possible, just so when you're wiping with the squeegee, you're not battling a whole bunch of creases and things, which again are going to make it harder to lay your cloth down flat when you do that lap. So get your tape as smooth as possible.
Right, so the other key factor is you don't want the resin sitting in this pot because it gets hot in the pot faster and it will kick faster. So we want to empty the pot as much as possible. You can always put the resin back in the pot, but once it starts kicking in there, it's all over. And don't get your pot stuck to the pot. So that's it, we're all land. This was the slight pooling I was talking about just here. I think there's a bit of a low spot there. But we got it. Good on top. Nice and flat. You can use the light to check everything. You see the light there? So you're eyeballing it up. Just like you're sanding drywall with a light in your hand. The nose is nice and tight, nice and tidy, there's no bunching of cloth or anything, everything meets along the stringer. The tail's nice, no bunches on the corners. Same with underneath, cloth is nice and tight.
It turned me on to dance on a long your wedding dress. Every day, I looked at baby with I love you. Sometimes when I know all those things you can do. That's the things they start you falling back on you. I first moved forward, and it's all I could do. Got hell in my life, so you still don't make a pay. You realize last night, you just, you I say. So I said, you are my way, my husband. Let's get a fix and take you home. Alright, so I'll give it to you. Let you better you say, like, home, you're hungry, too. Take you apart. I'll pack you a sword out and dress you up in crazy. Now she was my wife, the reason for life. I said, I got my heart, I got my heart, I got my heart, I got my heart, I got my heart.
On just that morning, it's something. I don't feel thing. I'll be here. I will go up for. I'll be ready. Twink skig. Come on. I'm walking so ain't from. Long way somewhere. Show off good. That's all that I can buy. Everything I do. Twink skig. One's the rule. One you stop me saying I love them. They ain't gonna sing. One's like he'll stand from my pain. One's long gone big truth. Twink skig. I drink gold, I'm not so sorry. If I don't break down, bring on, I said, live out. I said, between the shade. One's the road, one keeps trying to be saying I want to. Oh, the thing was saying, one I do. If I'm from the pain, one long, gone big truth. I said, between the shade. Oh, what's the run, between the shade. Look out for it, I'll wear it, but then I know through my way, my life, the rain, the rain, I got the rain.
Alright, we're all polished up, and that is the board all but finished. There's one more step that needs to be done, and that is to clean any polish off that has been caught up in the fin boxes. See that? I've polished in a way where I've kind of gone over them as a last step, still making it part of my full run of the board though, but that means it's not all caked, but there are little bits. The amount of boards I see at surf shops that are brand new, shining, and the boxes and the leash plug as well. The leash plug just full of caked polish. It's real slack, and you should clean it out. You can use cotton buds for your ears. The air compressor will blast a lot of it out, and even if you have to do it, use a hose and wash the board. Even after you've polished it, it's fine, but yeah, you can't leave shit like that. You've gone to all the effort of and all the care of doing it properly, and then you leave a small detail like that. It's slack. There we go, so we'll do that step, and that's it.